Hello, everybody. I'll be providing an overview of the Community Development Department. I supervise this is not forwarding. Here we go. So I'm the planning director, so I have one division of 5 in the Community Development Department, and I'll be walking through all those different divisions. This presentation is generally given to our new employees for their new employee orientation, because if you're in code enforcement, you might not know what's all involved with planning, but it helps inform your job, vice versa. We have animal care, we have building, admin. So it's a nice high-level overview of all the various things our department does. Our vision is to be the best community development department in California. We work really hard trying to achieve this. We've gotten some statewide awards for planning, building, code enforcement, I believe animal care as well. Mission is to help plan and build, maintain a great city, and those are our values below there. It's just a good place to work. I think there's a lot of people that want to work for this department just because we are fairly mission driven and we want to be making a difference in our city that many of us live in. So here's the structure of the organization there. Tom Pace is at the head with the Director of Community Development. And then, as I had said earlier, admin services, planning, building, code enforcement, and animal care. And I'll be walking through those different divisions momentarily. We have an intro video.
With values that emphasize professionalism, encourage innovation, support collaboration, and practice consistency, the Community Development Department works tirelessly to plan, build, and maintain our great city. We carry out 5 primary functions. City planning ensures future growth is in accordance with policies and preserves the history of our city. Building permits and inspections regulates development to ensure the health and safety of the public. Code compliance promotes a safe living and work environment for Sacramento residents and business owners alike. Animal care services protects public safety as well as animal welfare. And our administrative services keeps our department running smoothly and efficiently. Each division within our department works collectively with other departments to strengthen the livelihood of our community, ultimately contributing to the multitude of reasons why Sacramento is such a great city. We work closely with those who live and those who come to play in our city, from developer to animal lover. The Community Development Department plays a crucial role in the safety and well-being of Sacramento.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you. First division, administrative services, critical. In all the HR, we have 315 people in our department. It's a big department. Boards and commission supports, council reports, budget, accounting, handling contracts with consultants, grants. They're critical to providing the overhead, the resources for our job. Planning division. So there are 6 sections in our planning division, and some jurisdictions, cities, counties, they might just have one planner for the whole jurisdiction. We have about 54, and we specialize because the size of the city, the amount of work we're doing, all the policy initiatives we have, we try and maintain that right level of staffing. Thank you. So we can get the job done. So briefly, what is planning? When I was working the public counter, people came in for a building permit, and then they were told to go talk to a planner. And they're like, why am I talking to you? And what I would say is planning deals with the what, building deals with the how. So what are you? What is your land use? What are the environmental impacts of the use? What do you look like? What are the policies about this land use or the design standards that guide this development? And so that's what we deal with, is we sign off on the what, so to speak, before you can go to building that has code and regulations on how the structure is built. I'll get into how the building process works momentarily, but the top of this pyramid here, you have the general plan. We are currently updating our general plan, the 2040 general plan. That is, we're hoping to have before council in February, but that is basically the constitution for the city in terms of how we regulate, look at growth, development, how the city changes. Everything has to be consistent with the general plan, all planning approvals, even other things that, like say the Parks Department, what they do. If it requires any discretion by the city, it has to be consistent with the general plan. Our community plans, more specific area-focused planning, our zoning, consistent with the general plan. And as you go down this pyramid, things get a lot more specific. The middle of the pyramid there is subdivision maps, conditional use permits, site plan and design review. Those are what we call, you might hear this term, it's kind of esoteric, entitlements. It's basically planning permits. What's that? When someone comes in for a planning permit, essentially we say yes, no, or maybe. Yes and no is pretty easy. We look at the code and yes, you can do it, no, you can't. Maybe, that takes work. That could take months. It could take a public hearing. So a conditional use permit is when the use is, sure, cannabis, great example. That's not an immediate approval, oh, you want to do cannabis here, no problem. It requires often a planning and design commission, a conditional use permit, where we add conditions of approval, we take public input, we notice people. Site plan and design review can be approved at staff level sometimes, or director level if you need to deviate from a standard. We also have rezones and general plan amendments and PUD guidelines and development agreements. Those go up to the council level. So varying levels of approval, and I'll get to that in a little bit. And then at the bottom of the pyramid, building permits, grading permits, there's really no discretion. It's black and white. You're either consistent with the code or you're not. Maybe you can ask for some alternative means, but it's really, so you have the more general all the way down to the most detail that our department works on when it comes to land use in the private realm, and that's a good clarification. Public Works generally works in the public realm, streets, sidewalks. Our turf and community development as private property. So, long-range planning section, that's what I've spent a lot of my time in before I got this job. So, the general plan, which includes policies on land use, mobility, housing, open space, noise, conservation, safety. We have a new environmental justice element, a climate action and adaptation plan, focusing on good, sustainable infill development, building up and not out, but also housing policy. So I'll get into that a little bit. The housing element, which is the chapter of the general plan that needs to be certified by the state that shows that we have adequate growth capacity for the next 8 years. Our planning academy we do every spring. We update our design guidelines, trying to plan around transit and bus lines so folks can drive less. And then also a fairly new initiative, the Neighborhood Development Action Team. Lynette is a member of that. Nikel with Economic Development, Davila, and Elizabeth Boyd, who's the planner. So it's a multidisciplinary approach to working in commercial corridors, areas of the city, to really get more things going over there. Current planning, so us planners, when we talk about our jobs, it's often, are you in long range or are you in current? Are you working on policy or are you working on development applications? They're often divided into two things. They're very different jobs, but so in this case, our current planning section, this staff takes entitlements or planning permits up to commission and council. Takes 3 months to over a year. We have area-based senior planners. These are good people to know when it comes to knowing the regional areas of the city. North is north of the American River. Central is Central City and East Sacramento, and south is south of Broadway and Folsom. So they're kind of the area specialists, and they have teams of planners that they manage for those permits. Environmental planning services, this staff that works on the California Environmental Quality Act, perhaps you've heard this word CEQA before, and you're wondering what in the world that means. So that's an acronym. People say CEQA all the time. But you need, if you have any discretionary action in the city, development or whatnot, you need to review it for consistency with the California Environmental Quality Act. You look for environmental impacts and whether they need to be mitigated or addressed to eliminate those impacts. And then also after approvals, we have mitigation monitoring where we have staff look at those measures to make sure development after the planning process, when they're in building or they're doing the subdivision maps, are consistent with those mitigation measures. Urban design and historic preservation. This is really a team that's focused on architectural design and preservation, more high volume projects with quicker turnaround times, but they're specialized more in what development looks like. Zoning administrator, our zoning administrator is a person who basically is in charge of our zoning code, or our planning and development code, we call our zoning code the planning and development code. And they maintain that code, and they're responsible for interpretation. When you show up at the counter and you say, I want to do this, zoning administrator looks and determines what type of land use you are. Also, the zoning administrator has director level hearings, like tentative maps, other things like that, subdivision maps. And also the zoning administrator oversees the public counter, as well as zoning investigators, which are code enforcement officers that specialize in zoning and land use, whereas the rest of our code enforcement officers work on all the other city codes. New growth, the last section, just a couple planners that work on any type of annexation proposals and are responsible for the city's, the North Natomas Habitat Conservation Plan. Development in the Natomas area, essentially, as it develops, it is providing money or purchasing land for permanent habitat and farmland in the Natomas Basin. And this team also helps out with some of the environmental planning and mitigation. So that is planning in a nutshell, and happy to answer any questions. Moving on to building, here's the entertainment sports complex. Definitely one of the more complex buildings that went through the building process. Took a lot of coordination with different departments, agencies. Was a huge project. Here's how they're structured. You have permit services, building inspections, planning review and the like, and I'll go through that and just how things work, these different teams work. So at the permit counter, over 13,000 permits easily each year. It's really the first point of contact. Our permit counter now is open Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday by appointment. It was totally closed during COVID. Fortunately though, we were able to take in all our plans electronically, both planning and building, and we continue to do that. Easy Permit is the email you send if you have building code questions and building process questions. If you have planning questions, it's planning@the-city of Sacramento. I think I'll just go on. Plan review. So this is the team that once the building permit application is submitted, we review those plans for consistency with the building code. We do not issue a building permit until, and sometimes it takes 4 or 5 cycles, until we determine that those plans are consistent with the building code, the fire code, all the disciplines weigh in on that. And then once it's ready, then we issue the building permit and they can start construction. The Mozak building, Museum of Science and Curiosity. This is a brownfields project, a lot of grants and the like to clean up the soil, and then it reused a historic building. Building inspection, that's the next section. So once the project's under construction, there's inspection throughout various phases of development. We have different metrics and statistics to make sure that we're performing well. in that. In our inspections, there's 4-hour time slots that you can reserve over the phone or online. And we have this standard of contacting applicants 30 minutes prior to arriving on site. Project management, this started around when I started with the city. Projects over $1 million in construction, I'm sorry, this is a little bit hard to read, but you do have handouts, are assigned a project manager to help take the applicant customer through the whole process, a single point of contact, because you have a lot of people weighing in on these plans. There's questions about fees, demolition permits, all these things, and so this project manager is really helpful in the development process to be that single point of contact. Op-con groups, basically staff from other departments, specifically Public Works, as well as utilities. They work in the building plan review process. Public Works is weighing in on streets, street lights, sidewalks, driveways, how the development ties into the city's transportation infrastructure, and then the Department of Utilities looking at utilities, pipes, water, drainage, sewer, how they tie in. And also we work closely with the fire department. They have their development code, and their fire is involved in planning as well as in building to make sure that there's adequate space, site design for egress, fire access, critical for public safety. And so we've had an initiative, Sacramento Streamline, to improve our process, streamline it with over-the-counter plan review, solar, photovoltaic, electric vehicle charging stations, obviously online permitting. We have an expedited review process for multifamily development, affordable housing. They have really tight windows of time once they get their awards of tax credits and other subsidies. They have to turn around, get through the building process, and start construction. And of course, if you haven't heard, we have the Agency Counter website. If you're curious about what's going on with your project, your building permit, you can check in and see where it is, its status. But also, member of the public, Agency Counter, if you Google Agency Counter, City of Sacramento, you can sign up and carve out geographies in the city where you would like to be notified of building and planning activity, where you will get the planner's contact information, you can access plans to download, take a look, and weigh in on the project. Agency Counter. It's a great tool we launched about 1.5 years ago or so. The Convention Center, definitely another building that was critical for our building division. Building construction valuation, that says to date, the thing, but we often go over $1 billion in construction valuation each year. And you have their goals, and just maintain that high level of customer service so people continue to want to invest in our city. Next is code compliance or code enforcement. Code enforcement is the prevention, detection, investigation, and enforcement of violations of laws, statutes, and regulations pertaining to all these different things here. When our code chief, Peter Lemos, got started with the city, he read all 18 titles front to back for the city. That's really his code, and he is primarily responsible for enforcing a lot of that. And the process, I think, is the next slide. Well, actually, the overall goal is compliance, not penalizing and getting fee revenue. It's getting compliance. If we can let people know and they can take care of it, then that's great. And of course, health and safety, number one. Our city is, doesn't have dangerous structures or environments that are clean and they're safe. Organizational structure, you have neighborhood code enforcement, business compliance, and then housing and dangerous buildings. So those are some of the lead folks. Unfortunately, Jose Mendez just left us or is leaving us. So we are hiring for the program manager and the code manager slots right now. I'll get into that momentarily, what they're doing. So enforcement tools. So this is kind of the process. Declaration of a public nuisance, or even before that, we give a warning. We let people know about our concern. Then they get something in the mail, and they're ordered to correct the violations within a certain amount of time. If they don't, then we do fees, citations ranging from $250 to $25,000. If that doesn't work, in some cases we move on to abatement, where the city goes in and addresses the matter. Junk and weed removal, boarding, securing buildings, housing repairs, demolitions. If we have to do that and it's involving the property owner, then we seek reimbursement through fees, fines. If that doesn't work, then it's a lien on the property, their property taxes. And then if things still can't really be resolved, then we move on to litigation. So the neighborhood code enforcement unit is more about anything not involving a building, really, but it's more of storage of junk and debris on private property, parked cars, parked recreational vehicles, vessels, and the like, weeds, so weed abatement, graffiti, unmaintained, vacant, undeveloped lots, housing in dangerous buildings. This is really, you have the code enforcement, some of them are former building inspectors. This is really, you're into the building code. Are the structures dangerous or even immediately dangerous where they have to be taken down? And so it's really just a focus on the actual structure. This is, I don't know if you recognize this, but this is it's called the Ghost Ship in Oakland. Example of something we never want to happen in the city. There were people living there illegally, making staircases out of wooden pallets, and it caught fire, and yeah, that's the worst nightmare for our code chief, and so we never want something like that to happen in our city. We also, in recent years, have developed a vacant building ordinance, so we're more proactive in working with nuisances, with the vacant building enforcement process. There's a certain amount of time where the structure remains vacant, and then the owner is required to pay a monitoring fee, and we can levy fines if the structure isn't clean and safe and secure. The rental housing inspection program, this is a proactive program to ensure that our rental housing stock is meeting just code minimums. I think a lot of renters and tenants, some of them might be intimidated by asking the landlord to make these fixes, to make the home safer. And so when we determine a new rental unit comes online, we send out a rental housing inspection program. And then if there's no violations, things are corrected, then they are in the self-certification program from that point on, with kind of an audit. Every 10% of all the properties in the self-certification program are randomly selected for an inspection to make sure to continue compliance. We can't inspect all these rental properties in the city every year, and yeah, that would just be a lot of work. So here's kind of a rundown of the building stock that are involved with the rental housing inspection program. Mostly single-family dwelling units. Different types of violations: electrical, smoke detectors, water heaters aren't strapped to the wall and the like, mechanical issues, and illegal conversions of units, structural, plumbing. The third organization within code enforcement is business code compliance. So looking at businesses including entertainment venues, sidewalk vending, noise complaints, tobacco retailers, massage establishments, making sure that they're complying with state, federal, and local laws. In July of last year, we launched a nighttime outreach and enforcement team. Until then, most of our code enforcement officers clocked out at 5, like most of the city, but now so we have a nighttime team, and that has really helped to reduce the amount of complaint. Entertainment, so if you want to have music at your business venue, you need an entertainment permit, particularly the louder, more amplified. And so this permit really looks, bars, restaurants, and the like, that have entertainment. It's there's 80 active permits right now, and they have to be periodically updated to ensure compliance. But yeah, it's been fairly successful. And then various achievements. These are performance measures from 2021, but I think yeah, we've been quite busy, successful in that regard. Now on to animal care. This is some of the staff at Front Street, and this is a division that was added to the city probably 12 years ago. There used to be a general services department, but they have, you know, again, they're part of the community, the health of the community, and as it says down there, it's number 2 of the top 10 list of calls made to 311. Animal intake in the shelter has actually declined since 2022, and I think a large part is because of the successful foster program. We have a lot of volunteers that take in animals that can then be adopted, so that's putting less pressure on the actual shelter. And so you have various types of staff in animal care. You got the veterinarian team, looking at the overall health of the animals, spay, neutering, surgeries and emergencies, kennel techs. They're working with the animals on a regular basis and taking care of the facility, helping with adoption counseling, foster programs, our customer service team, volunteers. Animal care heavily relies on volunteers. It's hard to take in revenue like you can in building and planning, and it's competing with other important services in the city for general fund money. So, and volunteers really make it happen. I think Pause for Parties coming up on Halloween. There's a Halloween party going on pretty soon as a fundraiser. So they look at creative ways to raise money. Some of the community services that are provided through animal care, free or low-cost spay and neutering assistance, that really helps cut down on the amount of animals coming into the shelter, pet food pantries, services for the homeless. Pets are incredibly important for the homeless residents we have. And then microchip and low-cost pet adoption training and the like. Some of the statistics, kind of peaks, that you'll see in the dark columns there for cats. Spring is one of the busiest times during kitten season. There's a lot of kittens coming into the shelter. Our live release rate is at 86%. Then you have the breakdown between cats and dogs. Unfortunately, some of them do have to get put down, but historically, you can see in 2008, the live release rate was at 33%, and we're now at 2022 at an all-time high. So we have one more video. This is an example of some of the things they put out in social media.
The shelter is in the middle of a Category 5 hurricane. Kittens have been blown in from everywhere, so the shelter is offering $20 adoptions this Saturday and Sunday to save lives and evacuate these kittens into loving homes. Officials say this is not a drill, this is a kitten emergency. Officials are also asking people to share this video to stop a catastrophe. Back to you, Bill.
So those are places you could check out more of what we're doing in animal care on Facebook and Instagram. And that's it. I'm ready for questions. Those are some of the key folks involved, the division managers and our director, the names. If you haven't learned the trick with city emails, just first initial and then last name at cityofsacramento.org. That's how you get the email address.